Hi everyone, it's Julie from sproutsandstems.com here. Today's video is going to be 5 quick tips for growing a nice and full and bushy and beautiful monstera adansonii, aka the Swiss cheese plant. So before we get into that, please take 2 seconds to hit the subscribe button. Only a teeny tiny percentage of you guys that watch my videos are subscribed, so if you like this video, if you like my content, please subscribe. It's easy, it's quick, it's free. And check out my membership or Patreon. Both have pretty much the same benefits, just different platforms. There's exclusive content that I don't post anywhere else. There's priority response to comments and messages and more special perks. So check that out. Those are both linked in the description. And now we'll get into monstera adansonii tips. Just a little bit of background on this plant in particular. This is Mr. Monstera. If you guys have been around on my channel since the very beginning, this is the monstera adansonii that I've had for a few years now. I've pruned it and propagated and chopped it a bunch, and then a few months ago, it just started seeming like really unhappy in its pot. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna like chop it all off and propagate the cuttings. So I propagated the cuttings in water and then I moved them into leca. So that's where it is now. And your plant doesn't need to be in leca for these tips. This is just how my plant is currently. I need to find somewhere to put this because it is very heavy and I can't hold it like this for the whole video. So this is going to be 5 quick tips for growing a full bushy monstera, but I do have a full-on, more in-depth care guide that I'll link to in the description. It was one of my first videos and it's also one of my most popular. I filmed it a few years ago. It might be a little bit, I don't know, cringy being one of my first videos, but it's full of good information. So after this video, if you want a full comprehensive care guide, there's that. So tip numero uno, Giselle, proper light. This plant, while it can make do as a low light plant, it's not going to be full and happy and bushy and beautiful like this in low light. It likes medium to bright indirect light. And if you don't have that, grow lights are an excellent solution. And that is exactly what I do for this one. It has been growing in my closet for the past 6 months and it lives under a grow light and it's perfectly happy. So tip number 1, adequate light, medium to bright indirect light is perfect. Tip number 2 is don't be afraid to chop. So back when this one was like a huge, like big monstera and the vines were like very long all the way from here, like down to the ground, basically, I was constantly chopping off either leggy vines or just vines that were a little bit more measly or had leaves that were like super teeny and just weren't putting out like big beautiful leaves like this one and this one. So don't be afraid to chop. They do grow back pretty quickly. And when you chop, you want to make sure, when you chop in order to encourage new growth, you want to make sure to cut just above a node, which is a growth point. So I'm turning it this way to try to. So actually, here's a good example. I, at one point, chopped this vine, and you can see I cut right there, which was right above this leaf that already exists. But because I cut right there, I activated that growth point, and now this new leaf is growing in. So always make sure to cut above a node when you want to prune to encourage new growth like this. So you're doing 2 things there. You're getting rid of any like leggy, small, undesirable vines while also encouraging new, hopefully much more full and bigger growth. So that's number 2, don't be afraid to chop. And my next one is don't be afraid to prop. So You can then take those cuttings that you cut off, you can stick them in water, or you can actually stick them right back into the pot and propagate them that way. I personally like water propagation. So take the cuttings that you just cut off and stick it into water so that a node is under the water. Grow roots. It'll take probably a few weeks to grow roots that are a few inches long, and then stick them right back into the pot, and bam, you automatically have a fuller plant. So don't be afraid to prop is tip number 3. And I definitely also have a propagation guide. It might be the same video. If it's not the same video, I will also make sure to link that one down below as well. Tip number 4 is proper watering. So monsteras like to dry out a little bit, but not too much because they are jungle plants after all. They grow in humid, generally wet environments. Once the top inch, maybe 2 inches, depending on if it's a bigger plant, of the potting mix is dry, then you want to water it again and just maintain a consistent, even, light moisture, and that'll keep your plant nice and happy and growing to its full, beautiful potential. So tip number 4, proper watering. And tip number 5, last but not least, don't overpot your plant. Now, this goes for all plants, but the reason I'm specifying it for this plant is because this is something that I've done with this plant and it was very unhappy and honestly was kind of never the same after I overpotted it. So overpotting just means that you've potted it in, when you're repotting, you've put it in a pot that is too big, and that leads to overwatering. When it gets watered, if you have a small plant in a big pot, that's going to overwater the plant because the pot's going to take forever to dry and the plant can't use all that water. It's going to be sitting in a wet pot, root rot, blah, blah, blah. Very sad, potentially dead plant. So don't overpot any plants, but this plant I can vouch for does not like to be overpotted. So keep it in an appropriate size pot, and when you are repotting your monstera, make sure to only go 1 to 2 sizes up in pot size. So that's tip number 5, don't overpot. And those are my 5 quick tips for a beautiful, full, bushy, gorgeous monstera adansonii. And like I said, this is in leca. It actually is loving it in here. I propagated it in water before I moved it to leca. But these tips apply for a normal plant potted normally in normal potting mix. So they will work with your plant, I guarantee it. You'll have a happy, thriving monstera adansonii, aka Swiss cheese plant. And actually, let me bring you in before I close just to show you how beautiful. This leaf has some big fenestrations. And a happier plant means more fenestrations. Super cool. Super, super cool. I'm happy I was able to get this to bounce back by just like literally chopping it all off and starting from scratch because I love this plant. Ow. I love this plant. Okay, so thanks so much for watching today, everyone. Please subscribe to my channel if you like this video. Check out my membership or Patreon link down below, and I will see you guys next week. Goodbye.